Hi, everybody. Here I am. Awkward. Just awkward. Long time no see. Yep. I'm here today to actually do a tag video. I have not done a tag video probably since, I don't know, I think maybe January or February. So this should be kind of fun. Why no tags? Why haven't I done a tag in such a long time? Well, I kind of just fell out of the habit, and then I sort of, have fallen away from making videos, not on purpose, just life and things. And then also, as I mentioned before, maybe a video or two ago, YouTube has deleted all of my mentions. So I had tag videos to do. I had things where people had tagged me, and you can always go there and find mentions. And now there's nothing except one mention, which is just the very first mention that I ever got for my channel. So from a long, long time ago, which was from MJ at Reading This Life. How she does her her Sunday roundup of new booktubers. I was in that a long time ago when my channel first started, and that's the only mention that is left, and everything else is gone. And so, yeah, if you somewhere out there have tagged me, at some point in time, there's a chance that I haven't seen it or that it's gone. There is one tag that survives from the list that was there. That it's not the tag that I'm doing today, and that is the Map of Your Life tag, which I was tagged by several booktubers to do, and I still plan to do. Then I was tagged, I think last week, to do, I think it's the book browsing tag, I think, by Pat from Book Chat with Pat, which I just happened to see because I watched the video. And then this tag that I am going to do today, same thing. I just happened to watch the video and saw that I had been tagged. So I haven't been watching a ton of videos, but I've been trying to get around and visit people, and I've been bouncing all over the place here and there, but just maybe one or two videos a day, not even maybe a day. But yeah, that's how I got there. So the tag I'm doing today is the my favorite phenomenal woman tag. And this is an original tag that was created by Marilyn Maya Mendoza, and she tagged me in her first tag. And thank you so much, Marilyn, for tagging me. And this goes along with an event that she created, the Phenomenal Woman event, Phenomenal Woman Writers event, I believe. And that she created this in honor of one of her favorite authors, Maya Angelou. So I'm excited to do this tag. It's a pretty straightforward and simple tag. I'll link Marilyn's video below. As she says, she wanted to keep it short and sweet because it just makes it easier. Long tags that have many, many questions can get kind of confusing, or just a little bit, they can be a little exhausting, really. I think they're fun. I mean, I think she thinks they're fun too, but sometimes a nice, straightforward tag is the thing. So let's just get down to it. The first question is, I'm reading the prompts. Who is your favorite phenomenal woman author? Well, I think, months and months ago, I probably would have said Alice Munro. I'm not going to say that now. The unfortunate incident, that's an understatement if there ever was one. The terrible revelation from her daughter about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her stepfather, and then the fact that her mother just simply decided to just say, oh, well, too bad. I'm just going to stay with him anyway. really shocking. Just an incredibly shocking story. If you can Google it. I really don't. I'm not going to link to it or anything, but Alice Munro was probably one of my favorite writers for a long time, and I have to say, I'm not necessarily one to just jump and cancel. Um, if a work is good on its own, I try to have some consideration. The thing for me about Alice Munro is that attitude that she brought to the response to her daughter is it's in her fiction. That worldview that powers that decision is in the fiction. It's in her stories. It's absolutely there. It's permeated with that. And now I think I what I thought was a writer who was writing about a certain place and time and about trying to be an independent woman in a certain place and time, and that you might have to make difficult decisions, you might have to harden your heart, you might have to um, you know go against the grain, go against the conventional grain. That's what I thought I was reading, and now I see it. Just I can't It's like I can't see some of the writing the same way. I mean, she's a phenomenal writer. She's a phenomenal writer. There's no doubt about it. But for me, I just feel like the fiction is sort of spoiled by always having that in the back of my mind. So not Alice Munro, which wasn't the question. Who's not? Who's not your favorite phenomenal woman writer? Um, but I am going to go with one of her peers, somebody who is also a female Canadian writer who I think really has long lived in the shadow of Alice Munro and Margaret Atwood, and that is Carol Shields. I know she has a literary prize named after her. I know that she won a Pulitzer Prize for her book, The Stone Diaries. Yet still, she's just not an author that I think enough people pay attention to or really take as seriously as they could. Um, she just she was pretty prolific. I think I want to say she wrote 9 novels, maybe 11. Um, she herself said she didn't really love her first several books. She just didn't feel like she was doing what she wanted to do. She didn't feel like she was really hitting her stride. Um, and she talks about that some in this book. And this is the book I was going to hold up. This is a collection of essays and lectures and notes to students that her children compiled after her death, and it's called Startle and Illuminate, as you can see. And it's really interesting book about writing, about her approach to her own writing, about teaching writing and helping young writers to become better writers. And really, Carol Shields was fascinated by biography. She wrote a biography of Jane Austen. I think Angelia read it and reviewed it on her channel either earlier this year or late last year, I think. If I'll find the video and see if I can link it down below. But in this, she talks about sort of coming into her own and realizing what it was that she wanted to do with her own fiction, and how she really, as a writer, the more she was writing and the older she got, how she started to move away from traditional plot structures and was really interested in all the possibilities of biography. And yes, biography of fictional characters, not just biographies of real people, but just the, sort of the stuff of life. And she says here in this, I wanted to read this. She says, in a sense, I use my structure as narrative bones, and partially to replace plot, which I more and more distrust. I'm comforted by something what that Patrick White, the Australian novelist, once said that he never worried about plot. What he wrote was life going on toward death. This is what interests me, the arc of human life. And you can really see that if you've read some of her novels. I think probably The Stone Diaries is her most popular book because it did win the Pulitzer, and so it gets a lot of attention. And that is a book that where she looks at a woman's life through the lens of different things that happened to her in her life, different people that she's known, different stories that are told about her. But she never really in the book appears to tell her own story. It's all sources, other sources that fuel the story of this woman, Daisy. And it's just really fantastic. Another favorite book of hers that I have is her book Larry's Party, which is a man. It's basically just follows events in a man's life from the age of late 20s until his 50th birthday. And the chapters have very simple, easy titles like Larry's tweed jacket, Larry's job, Larry's marriage, Larry's divorce. There's even a chapter called Larry's penis. But she tells the story of Larry and his life through these, sort of mundane elements and events that are a part of anyone's life. And she's just she's a fantastic writer. She's just got a great sense of depth, and just I don't she's not at all, she's quite hopeful in a way. She's quite a hopeful writer. She's not a cynical writer. She's just very interested in holding up normal life and really turning it around and looking at it from all the different angles and seeing all the different ways in which it's interesting. And that's something that I really admire and would like to be able to do myself in just trying to write about characters, treating them as as something that's just deeper and more than people who fuel the plot of a story. Anyway, a character-driven fiction, I guess you could say, but somehow she goes a little bit deeper than that, which I really, really like. All right, the second question is, what book features your favorite phenomenal woman character? And I've got two. I couldn't decide between the two. And I think anybody who's been here for a minute knows how much I love this book. This is The Animators by Kayla Whitaker. And this book has two of my favorite female characters of all time, Sharon Kisses and Mel Vaught. And Sharon and Mel are partners. They are best friends. They're not romantic partners, but they're best friends, and they are partners in making animated films. They meet the first few weeks of college, and they immediately form a bond around art and animation and comics and creating the kind of art that they want to create. That they go on and they form a deep partnership. They begin making animated films, and they win a large prize. And the book really, the bulk of the book focuses on the year after they win the prize, what happens during the year following the prize, and how they win a grant, it's like a large grant that they win, and how they sort of fall apart and come back together to make something successful. But really it's also about their friendship and their relationship, and it's really just wonderful. I've recommended this book several times on this channel, and I did have somebody who read it and sort of commented back to me that that Sharon and Mel were awfully troubled, and they do a lot of drugs and they drink a lot, and that maybe it would have been better for them if they had just gotten therapy and not done all that. And I would say then they wouldn't be the characters that they are. They're very much, work is their therapy. They are trying to, art is the way they deal with the difficulties in their life. Art is the way they work out their problems. Art's the way they confront the things that have happened to them in their past and deal with their demons. And, it, I think that's a lot of people. I think that, I don't know. I don't think that a book about, two people who might be a little troubled but then go to therapy, it could be interesting, but I don't think it would be quite as interesting. So, the Animators, two of my favorite characters. My other favorite character, one of my other favorite characters of all time, one of my other favorite books of all time is All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Toews and Yoli, the first person narrator of this book. This is just such a wonderful, deep, heartwarming, sort of difficult, but also funny, just book that is a book, very sadly, about suicide. Yoli's older sister, Elf, who is a famous concert pianist, has dealt her whole life with crippling depression, and she's hospitalized, and she has decided that she wants to end her life, and she wants Yoli to help her. And Yoli is understandably reluctant and wants to try to figure out a way to keep Elf from harming herself, and try to talk her out of it and try to talk her into living. And that's pretty much what the book is about. Yoli is surrounded with family, her mother, her cousin, her aunt, her brother-in-law who was married to Elf. But unfortunately, Yoli's sister, Elf and Yoli, lost their father also to suicide after he had a lifelong battle with depression and bipolar disease. And that is actually Miriam Toews' own autobiography, if you will. This is not an autobiography, but that did happen to her. Her father did take his life in the early 2000s, and she wrote, I guess you could call it a memoir, but it's sort of a fictional memoir called Swing Low, from the point of view of her father, going through, talking about his life and talking about his illness and his battle with mental illness, and talking about then being hospitalized and trying to deal with the final moments of his life. I don't know how she did it, but she's clearly got a tremendous amount of empathy, and also, I don't know, a clear-headedness and a strength that is just absolutely remarkable. And then several years after her father died, her sister then also took her own life. And then it was several years before she was then able to write All My Puny Sorrows. And I know you're just going to think, well, what are you really telling me? This book will make you laugh out loud. Toews is funny. And as I said, she just has a tremendous amount of heart. The characters are beautifully drawn. The story it's both heart-wrenching and, like I said, I don't know, it's also full of hope in a weird way. So I highly recommend this. I love Yoli, and I hope that you will too if you decide to pick it up and read it. The final question is, if you were creating a book prize, which book by a phenomenal woman author would you choose? And I think I would choose this book and this author. This is Improvement by Joan Silber. Joan Silber is an author. I don't understand why more booktubers don't talk about her. I don't understand why more people just in general don't talk about her. She is just a really terrific writer. She's been writing, for a long time. I think she published her first novel sometime in the late 80s or the early 90s. And I think her first three novels were just, straight up traditional literary fiction. And she's also written short stories for The New Yorker. She's been a writing teacher. But I think starting in 2006, I think she said she'd hit a rut. And then starting in 2006, she wrote a novel that was linked stories, and she realized that she'd found her form. So that novel and stories was called Ideas of Heaven, and since then I think she's written five, maybe four, five, um, or five including Ideas of Heaven novels that are linked stories, and they follow a thread. They're not just random stories. They actually do follow a theme or follow a thread through the book, and there's like a central event in the main story, in the first story, and then it's sort of they just tangentially touch each other. Characters from one story go in, a minor character from one story will become the primary character in another story, but each of the stories sort of deal with the same theme. And in this one, this is, it's improvement. It's in all the different types of ways that we seek to improve our status, improve our lives, improve our health, anything that you can think of. And the book opens with a character called Kiki and her story. She's talking a little bit about this crazy aunt that she has, who has been living abroad for many, many years, and who has come back to New York to live. And Kiki herself is sort of in a weird situation. She's living in housing projects, in her boyfriend's apartment, and her boyfriend is in jail. And her boyfriend gets released from jail, and then he sort of tries to involve her in this not completely on the up and up business opportunity that he's got worked out to help him get back on his feet. And she agrees to help, and then she backs out at the last minute. And because she backs out at the last minute, somebody else ends up actually, there are circumstances that occur, and somebody ends up dying. And the rest of the book kind of goes through, begins to go through all the different stories of everybody who is affected by this death and this event that has happened, and it sort of cycles through each different person's life and how it touches it. So I just think that she's a phenomenal writer. She's basic, straight up literary fiction. These they do and don't read like short stories. Like I said, you come away at the end feeling like you've read a multi-point of view novel, I would say, more so than you've read just stories and think, oh, well, that story maybe didn't need to be there. Everything really feels like it's serving a singular purpose, as opposed to, just sort of like if you've read Morgan Talty's The Night of the Living Res, which I just finished and absolutely thought was unbelievable. It's a little bit in that same vein. Actually, it is very much in that same vein. What am I saying? A little bit. But I think her writing is phenomenal. And this book in particular is really great. And I'll just read you the first couple of paragraphs, because I just to give you a taste or flavor of the way she writes. Everyone knows this can happen. People travel and they find places they like so much they think they've risen to their best selves just by being there. They feel distant from everyone at home who can't begin to understand. They take up with beautiful locals of the opposite sex. They settle in. They get used to how everything works. They make homes. But maybe not forever. I had an aunt who was such a person. She went to Istanbul when she was in her 20s. She met a good-looking carpet seller from Cappadocia. She'd been a classics major in college and had many questions to ask him, many observations to offer. He was a gentle and intelligent man who spent his days talking to travelers. He'd come to think he no longer knew what to say to Turkish girls, and he loved my aunt's airy conversation. When her girlfriends went back to Greece, she stayed behind and moved in with him. This was in 1970. And that's the aunt that has just come back to New York. It's just, I just really love the way she writes. This isn't her most recent book. Her most recent book was called Secrets of Happiness. Secrets of Happiness. But this one is my particular favorite, I think. It's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to decide. I've read all the novels and stories, and yeah, I think this one is. I think this one's my favorite. So that's it. That's it. The last thing is to tag some booktubers. Tag some booktubers, and I wrote down a list so that I would not forget. I am going to tag Ashlyn. I'm going to tag Sonya at An Enthusiastic Reader. I'm going to tag Heidi at My Reading Life. And I'm going to tag Heather at Heather Reads. I hope that you phenomenal ladies will do this tag if you decide that you want to. If you don't want to, no pressure there. But this is a lot of fun. I think this is a great tag. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for tagging me, and especially thank you for creating this tag. I will have Marilyn's original tag video in the description box down below, and along with the prompts and the people I've tagged, and hopefully they're getting their tags. And we're not just all out in a sea of who knows what's happening. All right, so that's it for me. I hope that you have a good weekend, because it's Friday. I know I'm doing a tag on Friday. Oh well. And I hope to be back soon. I have a lot to talk about. I've read a lot. It just feels like there's a lot going on, and I will look forward to catching up with you hopefully next week. Okay, take care. Bye.